Hello again, everyone, and welcome back to Reddit Aliens. I am John, and as always, thank you so much for being here. Good topic, let's do it. What is the scariest sound that you have ever woken up to? Please remember to like, share, and subscribe. I woke up and my dad's alarm clock was going off through the wall. He was a really light sleeper, and he always turned it off immediately. It had been going off for several minutes, and I think I knew before I got to his room that he had died. It was just so incredibly out of character for that alarm to be going off like that. He died in his sleep, with the blanket still completely undisturbed, and I think I felt some small comfort at that, even though I was just a kid. My partner waking me up during a camping trip. He woke me to gather all of our gear and our dogs into our truck ASAP. The lightning we had spotted 6 hours earlier in the day had sparked a wildfire. We got out as ash and sparks were falling all around us. When we reached the top of the ridge surrounding our camp, we got out to look and watch the fire eat our entire campsite. We're so glad we called in the strike when we saw it. We met Bureau of Land Management and fire crews on our way out. The fire burned for like a week. One of the fires in Oregon in 2020, Lakeview Paisley Fire. A few days after my wife and I got our kitten, her first pet ever, I was woken up by both of them screaming bloody murder. My wife had stepped on the kitten's foot or something, and wasn't used to a hairy, pointy, howling animal in the darkness. And then, of course, she felt guilty and was crying about how she'd hurt the kitty. And the cat was fine, but she was upset, so she was hiding, which made my wife feel like the cat would hate her now. It was a long middle of the night. Accidentally squishing pets is old news to me, but I had so much adrenaline from waking up like that I was basically vibrating with anxiety the whole time. Ugh. A bedbug infestation. I had had them for weeks and had no idea what they were. I would see one or two here or there, and I just kill them, wonder what they were, and move on. One morning I woke up early and found quite a few of them on my bed. I started looking more closely and realized that the creases of the mattress were infested with them. Then I started to do some research, learned that I had bedbugs, felt my soul leave my body, then began the process of getting rid of them. Actually, scratch that. The morning my mom woke me and my new wife up because the house was on fire and I had to rescue the cats, but one ran back in. She survived and is okay with us 6 years later. For context, it was a few months after I'd gotten married and my father had passed. We moved into my mom's place to help out. It was as bad a time as can be for losing a home. Seeing smoke, then running downstairs and seeing the kitchen just engulfed in flames while still waking up is not something I ever want to relive. Bedbugs sound pretty nasty. Glad you took care of that and you didn't cause an infestation anywhere else. When I was like 10, I had a nightmare that ended with a local newscaster recapping the events of the nightmare. His TV news set looked just like it did in real life, except there was a Native American dream catcher hanging up behind him, the same dream catcher that was on my bedroom window. As I woke up from my dream and opened my eyes, the dream catcher was precisely in the same place in my field of view as it was in the dream. I sat there for quite a while, staring straight ahead and wondering if I'd actually woken up. My first ever night terror. It was god-awful. I was completely exhausted. When I woke up from a very refreshing 1 hour sleep, all of a sudden this tall, lanky, pure black figure with yellow stoner eyes was looking at me through the dimly lit hallway out the door. I screamed like a banshee, and the dude slowly went behind the thin doorframe, leaving ungodly imaginary claw marks on the wall. When visiting my old apartment, walking past that damn door still gives me chills. When my husband and I moved into our new home, I woke up in the middle of the night to someone or something saying, "Hello." I just laid there totally scared. I didn't say anything because I didn't want to invite anything into our home. I woke up from an unsettling dream to the feel of someone shaking my foot. As I was laying there trying to process what happened, a hand cupped my foot and shook it again. I immediately sat up and threw on the light. There was no one there. My bedroom door never opened. I was the only one in my room, and my kids were all asleep. So yeah, I didn't go back to sleep that night. Being in ICU on CRRT and truly believing the doctors were fake and were draining my blood for fun, I did not share a common language with the ICU team, so they couldn't tell me what was going on. Apparently, I did nothing but scream for help after the tubes were gone, and they transferred me to a ward where my husband could see me because I was driving them crazy. A snake eating my kitties. I lived in an urbanization that was under construction. I was the last house, and after me it was just trees, wildlife, a small river, and a mountain. Snakes could be seen from time to time in the houses. We don't have poisonous snakes, luckily. Well, I was sleeping, and my cat was in the next room with her babies that she gave birth to about 2 months ago. The kitties, crying, woke me up. At first, I didn't do anything because I thought nothing was wrong and their mommy was taking care of them. Their screaming got louder and wouldn't stop. And it was different from how they cried when my cat jumped in the box they were in to feed them. I woke up and went to see what they were crying, and there was this long snake with its body wrapped around one of the kitties. I froze right there, and my heart dropped to my stomach. Cat Mom wasn't there. I screamed my brother's name and then went to his room to wake him up, and he killed the snake and freed the kitty. We had 5 kitties. The snake left us 2, counting the one it tried to eat. Once I opened my eyes in the middle of the night only to see the shadow of like a big cat on the wall. In that land between awake and asleep, it was so terrifying. How was I going to run away from this puma or mountain lion? As I was figuring out my final thoughts of life, before being eaten, I saw my cat enter the room, past the nightlight that was on, an extension cable behind my nightstand that perfectly projected her shadow as a giant cat who would kill and eat me. She merely wanted snuggles. Good cat. To my son, telling me he swallowed a penny and it was stuck in his throat. Never moved so fast in my life. After a quick examination, we determined he was breathing fine, so threw him in the car and off to the ER we go, as opposed to calling 911. As we were at the reception desk, I'm explaining the problem and getting him registered and turned to him. He's looking very green. I ask him if he is okay, and when he opened his mouth to reply, he puked all over the floor. Husband points to the floor and says, "Well, there it is." Staff started dying. This, for whatever reason, made their day. They insisted we be seen anyway to make sure there was no tearing. Doctor came in giggling. "Heard what you did at the reception desk. Making my job easy today." He was fine, but what a scare at first. One night, as I was exhausted and forgot to lock the doors, a stray dog found its way into my house. Unaware of its presence, I peacefully slept through the night. However, upon waking up, I heard unfamiliar sounds emanating from outside my room, and panic instantly gripped me as I feared that someone had broken into my home. Suddenly, the dog entered my room, and in that moment, my heart leaped with a mixture of fear and uncertainty, intensified by the darkness that obscured its identity. The dog seemed equally startled by my sudden movement and the noise I made. Eventually, I realized that it was just a dog, and a sense of relief washed over me, allowing me to regain my composure. I gently guided the friendly canine outside and offered it some water, though it had already helped itself to my leftovers from the table, so I refrained from giving it additional food. Shortened up, dog breaks into my house and robs my leftovers from me. Well, that could have ended much worse depending on the situation, so doggo coming in for a late night treat? Not so bad. Hope you made a canine buddy. One time I woke up to people shooting each other in front of my house. One time my mom woke me up to tell me my grandfather was dead. One time I woke up to my mom telling me my dad was dead. One time I was in the hospital with a low cerebral spinal fluid headache, waiting for a blood patch to fix it, and my mom woke me up to tell me my grandmother was dead. I once was nearly killed due to carbon monoxide poisoning at 2 a.m. I once was at a summer camp, and there were some skunks in my bags under my cot. found my hot cocoa stash, but the mosquito netting was keeping them in with me. Effing terrifying. One time, I was camping, and it turned out I slept through a thunderstorm and 3 trees were down through my campsite, and I was fine. Twice, woke up to see my car had been demolished in a car accident overnight. Not scary so much as endlessly frustrating, etc. One time, my then girlfriend, now wife, was staying over at my place for the evening. At the time, I had this chow mix dog that was pretty protective, but that's why I loved him. One night I wake up to him growling, but assuming it is nothing. Then I hear the front gate creak open. Just when I think it was from another apartment, someone appears in the light and knocks on the door. It's like 2 a.m. My dog freaks out, and so do I, but I get up the courage because it looks like, in the faint light, this person is carrying a pizza. I open the door slightly to see this kid delivery guy, terrified at the sound of a large dog trying to get to him through the wall, telling me my pizza is here. I've not ordered a pizza. So back out he goes into the early morning to figure out who ordered this pizza, and back I go to try and fall asleep and wonder how I should have probably handled that situation better. I was potentially lucky it was actually delivery guy. I remember years ago, I believe in 2017 when I was 9 years old, I had a nightmare about a swarm of large centipedes, scorpions, spiders, and cockroaches chasing me. It was so frightening that I ran out of my room, then my backyard. The next thing I knew, I was desperately jumping fences. The streets were empty, but I saw a few people in their backyard, and I jumped their yard and yelled for help. They looked at me confused, and then I pointed, screaming, "Look!" repeatedly and shakenly. The creatures consumed them before they could react, crawling all over their bodies. I just ran and jumped yards. I even tripped many times doing so, but immediately got back up. I yelled to the other people, but they didn't seem to notice me, and I felt hopeless. I ran down a biking trail and jumped into a creek above a biking trail. Then I woke up in the middle of the night to the sight of a spider-like creature next to me, and my blood dropped cold. I was petrified. It jumped off the bed, and I waited a few minutes before launching off the bed and running into my grandpa's room. One time I experienced a form of sleep paralysis called autoscopic hallucination, and it occurred in a sleepy state when I was just waking from a nap. An inverted image of myself that was so real I remember standing in my bed and reaching for it. Gives me chills down my spine to this day. 4 years ago now, and I hope nobody experiences this kind of shit. Hurricane Andrew. It didn't hit until the middle of the night, so my mother had my sister and I go to bed at our normal bedtime. We woke to a tree falling down and the sound of wind a few hours later. That was nothing compared to the shit that went down. We rode it out in a hallway. The house basically disintegrated around us, and the doors blew into the room connected to the hall we were in. The men that were there threw a mattress up to protect us. We were safe, but lost everything. I'm surprised we didn't get more stories about natural disasters or things like that, at least in this selection, so thanks for sharing. Andrew was scary. I went to bed one night after eating dinner, watching TV, and ready for work in the morning. Instead, woke up 3 days later in the ICU with my family that had traveled from 3 different continents to sit at my bedside with no memory of what happened. Turns out, I got a bum ticker. But this answer isn't for me, it's for my wife. She woke up to the sound of her husband, who doesn't snore, having agonal breathing, while his heart was stopped and brain shutting down. So she had to call 000, Australian 911, and give me CPR while the paramedics came. A few. Alone in the building, walking up to police pounding on my door demanding to know who was in the building, called 911, faulty phone. I rented a house where I lived with my kitty. She's not a dumb kitty, she's frighteningly smart. 2 things happened at night periodically. First, waking up to a loud, horrible scream just outside my bedroom door, 4 feet from me. I thought my cat was being murdered. It took 3 times before I figured out it was a loose board. If I stepped on it, it was a normal squeak. My cat made it murder scream. I grabbed my hammer at 2 a.m. and beat the crap out of that board. It never murder screamed again. I'm a light sleeper. My cat is terrified of strangers. I woke up to the feeling of her body tensing on my bed. Then I heard her low growl. I thought thieves or animals outside, until I realized she was looking down the hallway, adjusting her gaze as if someone approaching my bedroom. By her gaze, it was 6 feet off of the ground before she noped it out of there. Terrifying. After a few occurrences, I spent an evening praying over every room in the hallway of my house. All the weird stuff stopped. 3 times out of a dead sleep, I jumped up and ran out of the house yelling, "Fire, fire, fire!" All 3 times, the neighbors had set the dune on fire. Not only that, but I ran straight to the fire without hesitation. No stopping to see where the fire was. No one else heard any yelling about it, but maybe I heard something subconsciously. One case was renters, so I wouldn't have recognized any voices. Last one. I was visiting my cousin and her family, including her 3 or 4 kids. So I wake up one night to hear a soft step, step, drag, step, step, drag. I froze. Had someone killed everyone? How long until they found me? I worked up the courage, phone in hand, to peek out the door. I kid you not, I see a kid-sized lump being slowly dragged down the hallway. Heart in throat. Terrified for the kids I love, I crept to the door. The 4-year-old was dragging a repurposed laundry tote full of stuffed animals down the hall toward the parents' room. She had an accident in bed, and I sure came close to having one myself.